Chapter 5 The Heart of the Labyrinth. The feeling of being pulled through the portal was like nothing Alex or Sarah had ever felt before. It was as if they were being stretched and squeezed at the same time, their bodies turning into pure energy before forming again on the other side. When the light finally faded, they found themselves in a huge dark space, the air heavy and pressing down on them from all sides. The first thing Alex noticed was the darkness. It wasn't just the absence of light, but something deeper, as though reality itself had been stripped away, leaving only a void that threatened to swallow them whole. The ground beneath their feet was solid, but it felt strange, like walking on a surface that wasn't entirely there. Sarah stood beside him, her breath shallow as she looked around. The space was enormous, but it had no clear boundaries. It was as if they were in the center of a labyrinth, a place where the walls were invisible, but the feeling of being trapped was overwhelming. "What is this place?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Alex shook his head, unable to answer. The hidden reality they had entered was unlike anything they had ever imagined. It was a place where the normal rules of existence didn't apply, where time and space seemed to twist and bend in ways that defied understanding. As they stood there, trying to make sense of their surroundings, a low, rumbling sound echoed through the chamber. It was a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once, shaking the ground beneath them. Sarah grabbed Alex's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Before Alex could respond, the ground began to shift beneath their feet, the surface rippling like water. The darkness around them seemed to come alive, swirling and gathering into shapes that moved with an unnatural grace. These shapes twisted and writhed, forming into tall, shadowy figures that towered over them, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Alex's heart raced as he realized what they were facing. The shadowy figures were not just illusions, they were guardians, entities placed here to protect the secrets of the hidden reality. And now they were closing in on them, their forms becoming more solid with each passing moment. "We need to move," Alex shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand and pulling her forward. They ran through the darkness, the ground shifting and changing beneath their feet. The shadowy figures pursued them, their movements fluid and relentless, as though they were part of the labyrinth itself. The chamber seemed to stretch on endlessly, with no end in sight. But as they ran, Sarah noticed something in the distance, a faint, flickering light, barely visible through the darkness. "There!" she shouted, pointing ahead. "I see something!" Alex glanced back at the figures gaining on them, their glowing eyes filled with malevolent intent. "Whatever it is, we need to get there. Now!" They sprinted toward the light, their footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The Guardians were closing in, their forms growing more defined, more real. The air around them crackled with energy, the atmosphere thick with the power of the hidden reality. As they moved through the forest, the mist grew thicker, obscuring their vision. The shapes in the mist grew more distinct, forming into figures that moved through the trees, watching them with eyes that glowed in the darkness. Alex felt a growing sense of dread as they ventured deeper into the forest. The figures were everywhere, lurking just out of sight, their presence oppressive and malevolent. "This place is trying to break us," Alex said, his voice shaking. "We need to stay focused. Remember what the Keeper said. We have to trust in each other." Sarah nodded, but her expression was filled with doubt. The forest was playing tricks on her mind, making her question what was real and what was an illusion. The shapes in the mist were growing more solid, more real, and she could feel their eyes on her, their whispers filling her mind with doubts and fears. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way and they were plunged into darkness. Alex felt himself falling, his body weightless as he tumbled through the void. Panic surged through him as he reached out for Sarah, but she was gone, lost in the darkness. "Sarah!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the void. There was no response, only the sound of his own breathing, loud and ragged in his ears. He was alone, the darkness pressing in on him from all sides, suffocating him with its weight. He struggled to stay calm, to remember what the Keeper had said. The labyrinth was trying to separate them, to make them doubt what was real, but he couldn't let it win. He had to find Sarah, had to hold on to the bond they shared. The darkness began to shift, forming into shapes that swirled around him, whispering in voices that were not his own. The voices were filled with doubt, with fear, telling him that he was lost, that he would never find Sarah, that the knowledge they sought was beyond their reach. But Alex refused to listen. He focused on the connection he had with Sarah, the bond they had forged through their journey. He held on to the memories of their time together, the sacrifices they had made, the trials they had faced. He would not let the labyrinth break him. The darkness began to recede, the shapes dissolving into the void. Alex felt the ground beneath his feet again, solid and real, and the oppressive weight lifted from his chest. When he opened his eyes, he found himself back in the circular chamber, standing before the stone altar. The symbols on the altar were glowing brightly, and the air was filled with the same energy he had felt before. Sarah was standing beside him, her expression filled with relief. "You made it." Alex nodded, his heart still racing. "We both did." The keeper's voice echoed through the chamber, its tone filled with approval. "You have passed the trial. You have seen through the illusions of the labyrinth and proven yourselves worthy of the knowledge you seek." The altar began to glow brighter, the symbols pulsing with energy. The air around them crackled with power, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. "The knowledge you seek is here," the keeper said, its voice filled with quiet reverence. "But remember, knowledge is power, and with power comes responsibility. The burden of knowledge is heavy, and the choices you make with it will shape the world around you." As the keeper spoke, the symbols on the altar coalesced into a single blinding point of light. The light filled the chamber, enveloping Alex and Sarah, and they felt the knowledge of the hidden reality flow into them, filling their minds with the answers they had been searching for. The light faded, and the chamber was silent once more. The symbols on the altar were dark, lifeless, and the energy in the air had dissipated. Alex and Sarah stood in the center of the chamber, their minds reeling with the knowledge they had gained. The hidden reality had been revealed to them, its secrets laid bare. But with that knowledge came a new understanding, a realization that their journey was far from over. They had uncovered the truth, but the choices they would have to make with that knowledge were only beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers they could not yet foresee. But they were ready to face it, armed with the knowledge they had gained and the bond that had carried them through the trials. The heart of the labyrinth had tested them, and they had proven themselves worthy. But the true test lay ahead, in the choices they would make and the consequences that would follow. The journey was not yet over, but they were no longer afraid. They had seen the darkness, faced the illusions, and come out stronger for it. And as they left the chamber, the knowledge of the hidden reality filling their minds, they knew that they were ready to face whatever lay ahead.